Good day, and thank you for joining us on Serious About Starting a Business. My name is Marie Wolf, and I'm your host for today. Today, we are honored to have with us Wakia Hayward of Dare to Pivot and Soul Beauty Outreach. Wakia, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to
Definitely,
be here.
definitely. We're excited to have you. Wakia, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to start Dare to Pivot. And then, if you could, while at it, if you could tell us a little bit about the nonprofit that you're a part of, Soul Beauty Outreach.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so like you said, my name is Wakia Hayward. I reside here in Maryland. And basically, my whole thing is that I've always been a story collector. One of those people that you just meet on the street. And I'm that person that people just tell me all their business. Like that would just will always be my superpower, ma'am. It's my superpower. People would just tell me all their business. I remember even when I was a little girl, my mom, I grew up, a little poor. And so we would have like three news channels. 2, 8, and 12. My mother used to call me 2, 8, and 12, ma'am, because I used to get everybody's gossip. I knew all the news about everything, And so um, as I got older, I started realizing that this was really one of those things that you can either use for good or for bad. I remember when I was younger, my mom challenged me to take 6 months out of the year to mind my business and the other 6 months to stay out of other people's business, which was the first way to let me know that the stories you collect, you don't always need to share them, right? And you need to know more stuff about yourself. So as I grew up and more people start to tell me their stories, I started realizing that one, I started to see just the similarities of how similar we all are as women. We're just all very similar. Like we all have these inner threads. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to, feel like we're making a difference. We're making an impact in this world. We're all that's pretty much, what I'm saying. We all want to be beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the
Yes.
thing that we all want to be. And so I started Dare to Pivot about probably last November. And Dare to Pivot is just a platform where I interview women and I allow women to come on my podcast and I allow women to share their stories. And they share their stories. Well, first, let me say Dare to Pivot is based off the Christian faith. So let me be very clear about that, because Christianity is the clique I claim. So let me be very clear. But it's pretty much a story where you allow women to come on, share their stories, and not just share the parts about how great everything is, right? Because we all talk about in this Instagram culture, in this Facebook culture, we all see that highlight, made it, started from the bottom down here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
that's not what Dare to Pivot is. Dare to Pivot is about sharing that process story because that's what we grow.
Mm-hmm.
And those, I wanted to just be able to have the flexibility to share the stories that these women share with me all the time. And so when you listen to Dare to Pivot, you hear all these fantastic stories of these women who have been dealt this crazy hand. Like, some of these women have had really bad childhoods, or they've had, you know, dealt with molestation, dealt with rape, dealt with drug abuse, dealt with all these different things. But then somewhere up in there, through grit, determination, and God's grace, they've now living this phenomenal life. And then they take that and they usually give it back. Like they would open nonprofits to do this, that, and third. They would help kids. They would, write books. They would do, start shelters for other women. Like they would do these phenomenal things, despite the hand they was dealt. Hence, Dare to Pivot.
Wow, that's amazing because it's the strength in going through, these traumatic things that, so many of us have experienced that takes you either to a point of, giving up or moving
Yes.
forward to, get out of it, do better, and I can't really say do better because it's depending on the person's situation, but to be strong enough to get out of the storm, and then
Yes.
to encourage others from that point to that are going through the same things that they went through once they've come out of it, to actually make their lives a lot greater and to enhance their ability to either provide for their children or for themselves or to just, like you said, tell a story. And I think
Yes.
that's so important, Wakia. You mentioned a little bit about a wonderful nonprofit organization called Soul Beauty Outreach that you're the treasurer of. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So exciting because Soul Beauty Outreach literally just got its 501c3. I think May 31st is when we officially launched. Whoop, whoop.
Awesome.
And the whole purpose of it, I'm actually serve as the treasurer, but the whole purpose of Soul Beauty Outreach is to actually bring humanizing healing, humanizing, and homes to homeless women. Right. So it's like a three-phase approach. The first approach, obviously, and I'm actually reading from my crib notes here. The first approach is actually to bring homeless women mental and emotional health, right, through mindfulness and meditation support. So that's like the first part of it, right? Then the second part is that humanizing part. And that's really just, again, sharing these women's stories. Because again, we are all the same. Like we're really all the same. And we're all maybe 2-3 checks away from being that woman that we don't want to look at. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, just like you're sitting in your beautiful home, I'm sitting in my beautiful home, and we're living in these great spaces, but nobody grows up saying they want to be homeless. Like that's nobody's plan. Just a series of unfortunate events or bad choices lands you there. So, and most time we don't look at them. Like, we just don't look at them. We pretend we don't see them. So the humanizing aspect of it is really just to share stories through these women's videos, through testimonies, through audio, different art forms and art exhibits, just to sort of show the world to look at these women and to recognize these women here. And then lastly, we would like to be able to provide some type of housing for these women, to get these women off the street, right? Because like that's our mission, right? Is to help. That's like what we're here to do, to help. So that's the whole purpose right now of what we want to do here at Soul Beauty Outreach, is to really help, is to heal, humanize, and then eventually shelter these women.
Wow, I think that's amazing. And like you said, every woman has a story, even though you and I have been blessed, and God has put us in a different direction. You and I both have a story too that people don't know. It didn't just come out of the sky and just land in our laps.
Exactly.
Just everything that I've learned about you, me and you both are kindred spirits, where we've worked ourselves into the ground to get what we have for our families and our children. So it's not that story of you wake up one day and it like lands in your lap. So that makes it important for us, but it makes it even more important for these women, like you're saying, because they've had challenges beyond our challenges along the way. And for your programs, both of them, Dare to Pivot, to tell their story, as well as Soul Beauty Outreach, to help them after learning their stories to get back on their feet, is a phenomenal combination and a great team that is provided to the women that are going through these challenges. So I thank you, and I thank Soul Beauty Outreach for doing this for our community.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Like I said, we just starting, but right now we're just really trying to partner with different people and trying to see what we can do. We would love for it to actually happen across the United States, right? For it to be just like this great movement. And our whole thing is don't look away. Like, don't look away. Let's just face it head on, and sort of just try to reach out there and try to, assist as many people as we can.
Gotcha. Now, in reference to Dare to Pivot, I spoke with you some time ago regarding that, and I was so impressed because you say the things that people want to hear that some people are just afraid to say.
Of course.
And it's needed.
Of course.
Needed. You have a fearless show that's a positive show, that's an enhancing show that brings, knowledge and, upliftment to our community. And, with that, you go over many primary subject matters, for your podcast. And now with the nonprofit, Soul Beauty Outreach, you're also reaching out. Do you have a particular target audience, which you've already kind of discussed, but just wanted to go further in detail? Do you have a particular target audience that you want to reach when discussing, your podcasts for Dare to Pivot, to bring that audience in, for them to be enlightened, educated, and more aware of the things that are going on, and as well as for Soul Beauty Outreach?
Well, for Dare to Pivot specifically, right? Dare to Pivot, really we pretty much target the women who are we always say of a mature age, right? It's hosted with myself and I have a co-host, Barbara Wade, and we always say we're women of a certain age. Like I'm in my mid-40s, Barbara's in her early 50s. So we're old enough now to know better. Right? We're old enough to know better. We're old enough to appreciate the struggles. We're old enough to, be thankful and grateful for the successes. And so the women that we sort of look for when we're looking to interview women for Dare to Pivot, we're looking for those women who are roughly about 35 plus, primarily because in that 30s is when you start coming into your own, as far as I can, like maybe it's just me, right? But it's around
No,
30,
I
40 is when
agree.
I start hitting my stride. You know what I'm saying? Because the whole purpose of Dare to Pivot is you have to, one, be brave enough to take your mask off. That doesn't
Yes.
happen in your 20s. That doesn't happen in your teens for sure. Uh, you know, Sometimes it doesn't happen till you hit 50. You know what I'm saying? When you're finally, first of all, you got to recognize you got on a mask. Let's
Yep.
just start with the beginning. You got the mask
That is
on.
true.
You know what I'm saying? And the person who you present to the world is not the real you.
Mhm.
So but when you get to a place, and you know how you talk to those older women, like those women who are like in their 60s and their 70s, and they like mama, and granny, and they ain't got no cut cards. They are who they are. They ain't trying to be nobody super special. They are who they are. You gonna accept who they are, and this is what we doing. I started looking at those women, and I was just so amazed by their confidence and their bravery just to be themselves. They didn't care about Facebook. They ain't got a Facebook account. They can care less about that. If you want to talk to them, you got their number. If you ain't got their number, you don't want to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? And they was good with it. They just didn't really have, it was just that confidence, that swag. And it wasn't that they were mean and cruel in the tellings of their story. They just was confident in knowing that they was these women, and they done lived enough life to know the difference between what's real and what's not. And so when we're talking to the women for Dare to Pivot, those are really the women we're looking at. Like, one of the things that we ask when we even start the interview, first of all, Dare to Pivot is a referral only platform. So the only way you can get on it anyway is via referral. So basically, because the reason why is because phenomenal women know phenomenal women. That's how that
Right.
works. So once we interview one woman, we ask that woman to give us 2 referrals. We ask her to give us 2 referrals, and then we reach out to those women. I do either a connection call with that woman initially, and we sort of figure out that woman is even Dare to Pivot. What is it? Worthy or whatever. Not the right word, but Dare to Pivot material. And
Mhm.
what makes that person that material is because they got to be open enough. They have to be transparent enough to share their story. They just have to be transparent.
Yeah.
One of the biggest secrets the devil try to do to you is try to pretend that you're the only one in play. It
Mhm.
only happened to you. What we want to do is bring the light on that it is not just happening to you. That someone else got your exact same hand. They got 3 kids at home, and they husband left, and they doing it anyway. They now
That's
going to
right.
school, get their PhD. You know what I'm saying? They just open the
Yes.
business. They writing the book. They doing it anyway. And so, in order for you to get to that place, though, there's a level of maturity and wisdom that comes from there. So those are the type of women we're looking for. 35 plus years. However, my sister was on it. She's in her late 20s, and she was phenomenal. And she's gotten a lot of positive reinforcement from that. So, because her story has just been great. So what I will say is, even when we've gotten people who have referred us to people who were in their late 20s or whatever, I treat everybody the same. I still go out. I still do the connection calls. I still hear their story. And then we just make a determination from there. What is it, something that can be shared at this point?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, you definitely said a mouthful. That was true at all levels, because I'll tell you what, until the age of my mid 40s, I always worried about hurting someone's feelings or making sure it was me, being the
Yes.
problem solver, and then I got to a point where it's like, no cold cut cards. I'm at a point now, you're going to either accept what's going on. I'm going to tell you like it is. I've always been a very forward and honest person, or we just won't talk. So
Yes.
I feel you there. And then speak of your sister, the thing is that she may be young, but she's mature because she has you and your mother to look up to.
Yeah.
So, you have strength in all cards. So that, especially with her big
Yeah.
sister there.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Very true. Very true.
So that
Very
makes a
true.
difference too, with the stories and people, because you're right. There's some stories that people are willing to share that, they're not as optimistic in wanting to improve, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the ladies, it sounds like the ladies that you're bringing on your show are women that have been through the storm, or either still living through the storm but doing something about it. They're not sitting back and allowing it to happen. They're doing something to make sure that what they're going through has improvements along the way. And that's important, and that will also uplift other women that are going through it, that feel that they're giving up, and this can inspire them to see the stories of the other women and say, hey, they're going through the same things I went through, and look what they're doing. Okay, it's time for me to go ahead and pick it up. I can do this too. I can get back on track. My life is important to me. It's not going to end here. And there's so many people that when they've been dealt a hard or traumatic, situation, that they fold,
Yes.
or they, they feel that the world is coming to an end. And we've all been through situations like that. We've all felt at times like, I'm sure you and I both have with, everything
Yes.
that we've been through, where it's it, okay, I just need it, I can't do this anymore. And then the next thing you snap up, you're like, oh yeah, I can, because I got to do this for this person, this person, this person, especially when you have children, because you have that responsibility. You have to, you can't fail. And I know in one of our other shows, we talked about the fact that as women, you and I are women, and then many others like us that cannot fail because we have so many people
Yes.
depending on us. So it puts us in a position where it's like, it's time to just move forward, be that strength, and the strength that we have, make sure that we're a strength for other people. So what you're doing with Dare to Pivot and with Soul Beauty Outreach is exactly what we need in our community.
Yeah, and and just to say that, right, is that it's not necessarily that we can't fail, but just to show you that even if you fail or even if you stumble, it's okay, because
Yes.
it's not the end. Like, that's the biggest thing, right? Like, it's never too late to be great. So it's not the end. Just because you hit a bump doesn't mean that God can't use that bump. That bump is still totally usable. You know what I'm saying?
That is right.
And so we just need to keep it moving and keep your head up and keep pushing forward. And yeah, like Dare to Pivot is based off the word DARE, DARE. It's like an acronym, and it starts for decide, act, result, and then evaluate, because that's what wisdom looks like. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You first got to start with this decision. And so as we're talking to these women, we try to make sure we hit those highlights, right? We try to hit, like, we ask questions like, what was you saying to yourself when you decided to start that business? Like, one of my favorite conversations is with a woman named Yvonne Harris, and she says, she talks about how she was so afraid to start a business because she had tried to start a business one time before and it failed miserably. She decided to go back and start it again. And when she decided to start it again, she said, the entire time I am walking towards the cliff and I am saying to myself, I can't do it. I don't have the money. I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know this. I don't. And she said, but every time, Wakia, I'm still walking towards the cliff. I'm still walking towards the cliff. And she said, and then when I get to the cliff, I just say, screw it, I'm here now. And I just jump.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that right there has always stuck out to me, because a lot of times what stops us is the words we hear in our mind. It's whatever is the loudest voice you hear is the voice you're going to listen to, right? And the fact that she was able to still push through that and still say there's so many things that she didn't have in front of her, but she knew that something was calling her to start that business. And she started the business. It's doing great. I just checked on her yesterday. It's doing great. She's doing big things. She's getting on more and more contracts. And so, it's just phenomenal. But if she would have stopped when that voice first told her, you don't have the money, you don't have what it takes, you don't have this, she would have never made it to that next level. So that to me is like the encouraging decisions for me. And that's what DARE is all about. Decide, act, results, and then evaluate. Because sometimes you gotta pivot, right? Sometimes you gotta make a change.
Yes.
Because it is what it is.
They say that blind faith. And when you have, just like we know God exists, we cannot see him, but we know he exists. So we are all believers. It's that blind faith of knowing that as we move towards positivity, that God's got our back. He's going to uplift us. He's going to move up. Things are going to work out. It may not work out the way that we want it to. It may not work out the way or the time frame that, we set forth to have it done in, but it happens. It works out. When we were kids, there was that one children's story about the princess, and the princess, they were testing to see her faith or if she was who she was, and they put the pea on the bottom of 12 mattresses, and underneath that,
Yes.
they if she feels this, we know she is real. So of course the princess, couldn't sleep that night, because when she got on top of the 12 or however many mattresses it was, when she got on top of the mattresses, she felt the uncomfortableness of something poking her, which was the pea. And that's like in life, sometimes God sends us messages through intuition, and sometimes it's through spirit, and sometimes it's just that we have to just kind of go with what's being spoken to us. And even though, we may not hear the spoken word of an angel or so forth, sometimes messages sent to us in different, I'm just an avid believer, messages sent to us in different ways, through other people like you,
true.
how you help the community, through dreams, through intuition, through that aching thing that you have in your heart that's telling you, go for it. It may be hard, but go for it. And, just learning how to listen to the signs, I think, is a key way for us to move forward in success, because it's scary. it's scary no matter what, whichever decisions people make, it's scary, especially not just for yourself and taking care of yourself, but if you have a family, if you have children, if you have a spouse, or if you have older people that are depending on you, it's a decision, and every decision can sometimes be a challenge. So I agree with that. And with your platform, you definitely lead them to see that everybody's story, starts out with a little bit of a challenge. But guess what? You stick with it, you will succeed.
And that's the feedback we've gotten from a lot of women, right? When women come back and write me back, or they call me or whatever, that's what I hear. I hear that thing of, I'm so glad you got that person to share that, or I would love to connect with that person. Because what we try to do is, if that person like has something they want to share, like if they have a book they're trying to do, or they have some type of websites or something like that, I like to put that in the comments so that the women could connect with those women, right? Because we're trying to build this network of these overcomers, if you will, right? These people who dared to pivot and they got out of their own way, they did something great. And I would like to show that greatness look in all different shapes, facets, and forms. I mean, we've had one woman on there who was a stay-at-home mom, and in this day of Beyonce, in the age of empowerment, women empowerment, you know what I'm saying? The thought of just being a stay-at-home mom is just, it seems so old school, And I remember talking to her, and I remember how she was wrestling with staying home and how, what is her relevancy in this world, especially as her children have started to grow up, right? But just to be able to talk with her, and she was teaching on the side, and she was doing all these things, and she was just saying how in this middle of COVID, how because she was a trained teacher, but then she decided to now have be a stay-at-home mom, how in the age of COVID she became very instrumental to her friends who was trying to teach their kids at home. You know what I'm saying? So it's like how God uses everything. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And how she was able to, she was already an adjunct coach, adjunct teacher anyway, professional anyway, but just being able to now bring that to her community and help her community, it has opened up a whole new world for her. And she's been able to see that, wow, this time I was sitting at home, because she's had the luxury of teaching her children throughout. I think her children was up to middle school. So she could talk to her friends about, well, this is how you connect with little ones, and this is how you connect with, you know what I'm saying? And it was huge for all those parents that were struggling in 2020. It was huge, so everybody has this relevance. And I think that's what we try to bring to this platform, is a show that you are somebody, you're special, and you was completely chosen and built and designed for such a moment as this.
Wow. And I agree, like you're saying earlier, sometimes, actually not sometimes, 99% of the time, healing comes through hearing stories, stories that they can relate to, that, someone else is going through, and they'll feel that they're not alone. So it just like what you just mentioned, we're reaching out to the other parents. She helped their lives because, a lot of parents were complaining during this time frame how to reach their kids, how they're going to work, and how they're going to, do the homeschooling. So she was an angel, to so many of them that were, complex with how to get through this situation. So
exactly.
So that really worked positively, for her and everyone else too. You've mentioned a lot of wonderful things in terms of, how you want Dare to Pivot, as well as Soul Beauty Outreach, to inspire and educate the community. But is there anything else that we haven't talked about today that you'd like to mention?
So yeah, I'm going to actually just give a plug for my husband, because my husband owns the gym here in Maryland called Body and Motion Fitness in Crownsville, Maryland, bodyemotionfitness.net. So please check it out. But, just like how we were just sharing about these stories of, helping women overcome, as women, one of the main things that we don't do well at, and you and I had talked about this briefly, right, about how we don't take care of our physical health, right? So that's just a thing where now, especially, I guess most people, as we got through 2020, thank God, and that those of us who made it through 2020, we gained that 20 spread, or that 40 spread, or that 50 spread, whatever your COVID story, your COVID, whatever, you know what I'm saying, your COVID, whatever that was. So, I realized that it's very important for us to not only have ourselves together mentally and emotionally and spiritually, but it's also very important for us to have ourselves together physically. So I challenge all the women who are listening to this podcast to actually join me as we all try to make a move to just try to do a better job with taking care of ourselves physically, right? Because we're getting older, especially those women of us who are of a certain age, who are in our middle stages, right? 40 plus. I'm tired of slow down. We don't put on all this freaking COVID weight, and we need to get our lives together, women, is what I'm saying. Let's be like Stella, get that groove back. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, let's do things to try to change the way we move and try to change the way we eat and try to just be better women all the way around, right? Because what I've learned in this journey is that while I am great intellectually and I'm great emotionally and spiritually, but that physical joint, oh, honey, I would rather sit down and Netflix it all day. Like I will watch you working out and be happy about you working out and cheer you on. But I ain't trying to do it, is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying a lot because, my husband is super duper fit. He owns this gym and, he has these things, but, I've just challenged myself to say, just to be brave enough to face the thing that I have been wanting to do my whole life, which is be a more fit me and take me seriously, like the physical body seriously, because this is the only one we got.
That is so true.
That's it.
Like you and I were talking about earlier before the show, it's important. And the thing is that because we are so busy, not only are we working, but we're taking care of our children, our families, and by the time it's time for us to take that minute to do those things for our physical health, we're exhausted. So you're trying to bring in that 5, 10, 15 minutes, a time for yourself, and all that time, all you want to do is sleep. So you're right. We have to carve out that time, because if we don't, and as we're getting older, because you and I both are in our mid-40s, and that's the time where it's time for us to be vibrant and good and get to that next stage, and and then we work ourselves to the ground and we wake up and it's like, oh.
Because you know what it is though, right? Because the problem is, you're right. We're now in our mid-40s, but now we've grown enough to understand what we really want to do in this life. You know what I'm saying? And all that stuff we want to do ain't got nothing to do with our physical health. Is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? We want to bring awareness to this. We want to bring awareness to that. We got to do this. But we haven't really, well, at least I haven't, wanted to go and do the thing that you know that you need to do to keep sustaining you in order for you to do that thing long term.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and so, just doing something simple as not rewarding myself with food. Just that one little thing, like saying, oh, when I do something great, I don't get a cheesecake. I mean, I don't get a, I don't know, whatever it is. I'm a chocolate kind of girl, so I don't get an ooey gooey cookie after this. Like, instead, just that, like something like that, just don't reward yourself with something as simple as food. And so just to try to make these small little life hacks to make a big difference is my place now to say, now I'm going to dare to pivot and I'm going to do this thing. Like I'm going to make these commitments. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to change the way I eat. I'm going to change the way I move. I'm going to make an effort to just be a more healthier me, not a skinnier me, because I don't believe it's about being skinny. That's not a thing, right? I think it's more so about just being more healthy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Sleeping better. You know what I'm saying? And like the crave now, everybody takes melatonin, to go to bed. I don't want to take melatonin. I just want to go to sleep. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
I just want to go to sleep. I don't want to, I don't want your knees. I don't want my knees to hurt. I don't want my back to hurt. I don't want any of that. At this point, because we sit and look at our screens all day, we're starting to, look down like this all day. I don't want to be those people with a hump. I ain't trying to be that woman with a hump. You know what I'm saying? So like all these things that are playing in my mind because we're getting older. It's a thing.
I agree. And I'm glad you said it about being healthy because, as women, we are all different and we all have different body sizes. So healthy for one person may not be healthy for the other. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's about being healthy, not about being skinny, because skinny may not be healthy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Fit and healthy is the most important part. So I'm glad you focused on that. Because some of us, like I know for a fact, me, all women in our family, that we're beautiful, but we have big bones. So if you put 100 pounds on us, we're going to look like Skeletor.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, and I think that's it, right? It's not even about, but I think that's what it comes down to too, about knowing yourself and taking off your mask and understanding what's important to you, right? Where some people, the ideal size for them may be a size 8. For me, right. I'm good with a 10 or a 12. Let me rock right there. I'm good.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
My thing has always been, let me stay out of Lane Bryant. I don't want Lane Bryant to be my must go, my go-to. Like I don't want to have to go to Lane Bryant. If I decide I want to go to get something a little bigger, then that's fine. But I don't want to have to be there. But that's just my truth. You know what I'm saying? If that's not your truth, then that's okay. That's perfectly okay. But we just need to get to a place where we're healthy. We're very healthy. And I don't just mean healthy from what the world say. But I mean, be brave enough to go get those numbers. What those numbers say?
Yes.
What that
Yes.
cholesterol look like? What that A1C look like? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
we need to be an adult. Let's just be adults.
Yes. And the
Let's
one
just
thing
be
I will
adults.
say this, and I'll share this part, just recently going to the doctors and doing my physical, of course, with the COVID situation, the body mass index for me was completely different than a year and a half or 2 years ago before this COVID situation started, and I sat back and I was like, wow, even though the other numbers look good, I wasn't happy, and it's like it automatically put me into a thing of a goal, like, no, I can't do this. This is not me. I even went back to try on some of the some of the clothing in my closet, my suits. They were like when we go back to work. And I kid you not, I was so distraught, at the fact that, some of the jackets I couldn't get past this
Yes,
part of my
honey.
arm.
They like,
And it was
no.
so embarrassing to me. And I'm like, what did you do? You know what I mean? So I am now so focused and I have such a goal to get back healthy and
Yes.
fit and to get back into my clothing. So I want to go
Yes.
shopping before everything
Yes.
starts to open back up. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because so many of us, we give so much as women and men. And when it comes to the point of us, it's just like, we put ourselves in the back burner. So thank you for bringing that to, everyone's attention, and to, enlightening them on the situation for health, because physical health is important. And also, and thank you for bringing the attention to Soul Beauty Outreach. I know that last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, so this is very important. Of course, we know in our community and many others, mental health is extremely important. It's something that we all suffer through, regardless of our race and culture.
Yes.
It's something we've seen on the news where people from all races and cultures are doing things that are unfathomable. And they're doing it because there's the importance of mental health, but there aren't as many mental health programs out there, in my opinion. For example, I have a friend who wanted to check into, adolescent mental health, because, COVID has really done a lot to kids. They haven't been able to see their friends. It's been a very different situation for some kids that don't learn as well, in an external environment,
Right.
or private environment, and they learn better when they're, in school or around other kids. And so she called around to see if she could get a therapist for her child, just someone that they could speak with. And literally, they were booked out through November of this year. And she did this back in, I believe it was February or March. So that tells you the importance just in our area alone. And she didn't just, stick with Maryland or DC. She even checked out the Northern Virginia, and it was just, impossible for her to get an earlier appointment with, unless it was something that was like, a dire situation of adolescent suicide, which thankfully was nothing like
Right.
that.
True. Good job.
So thank you for bringing that attention too, because not only does it, affect children, but it affects women. And women have the greater responsibility most times in taking care of their children and their families.
Yes.
Men as well, but of course in society, the way society has placed it, most of it has been placed on the women. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wakia, what's the main message you would like the listeners to take away from today's wonderful interview?
I would say one, we all have stories to share, so don't be afraid to share your story, because your story could be the thing that helps someone else makes this change in our life, right? As we get older and we look back, we all want to be able to say that we had these great lives, but you also want to be able to say, who did you impact? Who did you help? Who did you change? Who did you inspire? And I pray that everybody gets up thinking about that. Who are you going to inspire today? So share your story.
I love it. I love it. Well, if anyone would like to reach out to you for, to refer, someone to Dare to Pivot, or if they know someone that can definitely benefit, or many people that can benefit from the, the programs and the outreach of Soul Beauty outreach, how can they reach you?
So you can reach me at Dare to Pivot. You go to I actually have a coaching company called waterwalkers.net, Waterwalkers Coaching and Consulting. So if you go to waterwalkers.net, you go there, you can actually see there's a Dare to Pivot form that you can actually go and just, request an interview or want to be interviewed, or, say you want to be interviewed or whatever. So you can put your stuff in there. But Soul Beauty Chat, if you just actually just go Soul Beauty Chat, and I actually just put it for you in your chat. I'm just going to get it right now. So Soul Beauty Chat, you can actually go look at Soul Beauty Outreach on Facebook. So that's currently where we are now, because we haven't really launched the official website yet, but you can go there and check us out on Soul Beauty Outreach on Facebook. And then you can actually go and sort of hear all about us, read all about us, see what we're doing. Feel free to be a part of the movement early by supporting our GoFundMe page. We're actually trying to hit 5,000. I think we're like 1,000 short. So if your losers want to go and try to help us out with that, that would be great. We really appreciate that. And then lastly, with the Dare to Pivot, you can actually just go listen to Dare to Pivot on any place where you listen to your podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on Anchor, it's on iTunes. You can just go and put in Dare to Pivot and it comes right up. So I would love to hear your feedback. Yeah, it's great. So right now we actually just come one season one ended in June, actually May. One of there, we start back in season 2 in October, and I'm actually booked through to December. So if you're thinking about, you think you know somebody who wants to be interviewed or you want to be on there, send your request in. I go back to the connection calls and we get started.
That sounds great. Wakia,
lastly, let me get this. Look.
Oh, sure.
I gotta give my husband his plug.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look. And then of course, bodyemotion.net. Bodyemotion.net. That's the website for my husband's gym. So please feel free to check that out.
That sounds great. Wakia, thank you so much for all the wonderful information you've given us today. It is amazing. It's inspiring. It's exciting, to know that there are companies out there and, people out there like you that have implemented themselves and their businesses, to improving and helping those within our community. So I thank you again for today's interview, and I look forward to getting you back, on our channel to discuss water walkers, coaching and counseling. So I know our audience would love to hear about that as well.
Yes.
So thank you, and I look forward to talking to you.
I'd love to be back.
Thank
you so much for having me, ma'am. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Anytime. It's our pleasure is ours. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.